All right, let's get into this Blake Lively and Blake Lively and Popcorn Planet story. So I have really, I really struggle keeping up with this Blake Lively stories because I'm really over it all until there's like massive breaks in the case. Luckily, there's so many other content creators who are covering it, but this one is actually, it has something to do with a a friend of mine. I've become friends with Andy Signor from Popcorn Planet throughout this process. He obviously is producing this documentary. It ends with justice. Is that what it's called? And I was interviewed for it. So, of course, I met him in person. Um, so did Zach, so did Elsie, so did Lauren Knighty, so did many others. And he has he's been doing this YouTube thing, this journalism thing. He covered the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. Every single time I talk about any big story, you guys are like, Andy talked about this. He covered a lot of stuff with Michael Jackson. He covered a lot of stuff with Britney Spears. He covered a lot of stuff with, you know, Diddy. He's been covering cases and stories and entertainment stories for years. So he's been around. He has almost a million YouTube subscribers. Like, I think he has like 950,000. So the guy is very, very successful here on this platform. And he was one of the 107 creators that was subpoenaed back in, I don't even know what month that was now, when Blake Lively and her team went out and subpoenaed all the content creators. And he was one of the major ones that was subpoenaed, like with the other big creators that were, right? So with Perez and now I can't remember who the big ones were. Perez, Candace. Who were like the big names that were subpoenaed at the very beginning? I like truly cannot remember. Megyn Kelly. Was Kirsty one of the big ones at the very beginning? No, it wasn't Kirsty. No, it was Perez, Candace, and Andy. Yeah, I think it was just the three of them. I feel like I'm missing one more. Yeah, Candace and Perez were the only other two that were subpoenaed directly. Everyone else was through YouTube or TikTok. Exactly. They were like there was a couple big creators that were subpoenaed directly, and it were bigger, wider subpoenas, right? They were asking for a lot more information. They were asking for more privilege. They were asking for more of their text messages and their communications. Whereas a lot of other content creators were subpoenaed simply through YouTube, TikTok, X, other platforms, Google, etc. And for those, they were only asking about, like financials and analytics and like random stuff like that. But they weren't asking about their actual text messages or their emails or whatever. So this was a really, really big subpoena that Andy got. And as you know, I actually don't really know what's going on at all in the Candace Owens world of it. I don't think she talks about it at all. So I don't even know what's happening there. I'm pretty sure Megan got hers quashed. Perez Hilton did a big, media push. So he was talking about that publicly when he got his quashed down in Nevada. And then the rest of the 107 content creators, as far as I know, or the 100 some content creators, as far as I know, all were able to get theirs quashed individually in small cases here and there. The only ones that I ever really heard from or talked to were Lauren Knighty. That's the only one that I'm really friendly with on a day-to-day basis that I talk to. So yes, and Perez had the ACLU help him. Now, Andy, I don't talk to Andy, just being 100% honest. I don't talk to Andy often. I definitely don't talk to him in a one-on-one basis, except I've talked to him on a one-on-one basis, like about, Michael Jackson. Like I'll reach out to him and be like, you believe the guys about Michael Jackson, or you don't believe Michael Jackson, or you believe Britney Spears? Like we'll talk about that kind of stuff lately, but we haven't talked about the case. We haven't talked about that other than in a more group way in the last few months. And like I said, I haven't been so clued into the case in a legal sense, just because it's been there's so many filings every day, and it feels so mundane to me personally. But Andy, I know, did file the motion to quash in Florida. And the reason he did that was, well, actually, I don't really know the specific reason he did do it, but his lawyers decided to do that. He lives in Florida. He chose to do that. So his choices, I guess, were to go in Florida or to do it in New York, where the original case was held. Now, the problem, it looks to me like, because it was done in Florida, it ended up actually hurting him in the end. And unfortunately, yesterday was a ruling that didn't go his way. Now, there has been a press release that has just been released. And this is what it reads. It says the Florida judge rules against independent journalism for celebrity Blake Lively. So I want you guys to just remember this. And I'll just say this about Andy. There's a lot of bad press that goes on around this case, right? For both sides, obviously. There's going to be a lot of people that are team Justin that are going to talk a lot of smack about everyone involved on the Blake Lively side. Anyone, Hugh Jackman, Taylor Swift, Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, any of Blake Lively's former coworkers, any of the people involved with It Ends With Us, Colleen Hoover, etc. Then you're going to have a lot of Team Blake people, anyone that, is on Blake Lively's side, that is really going to take a moment like this to come after every one of these wins that Blake Lively wins, I say in quotes, that Blake Lively has. And they're going to come after something like this. And they're going to now just really hop on this trend of being like, Andy was wrong. And see, Andy did this. Andy created this smear campaign. And Andy did this. And Andy did that. And I just want to say, before I read and get into the story, I really want us to remember what the actual case was here. Okay. So before I get into the story, I just want to remind everyone here. Blake Lively went after Justin Baldoni and the producers of It Ends With Us for saying that she was sexually harassed on a film set, and then retaliated by those people for a smear campaign. And now, as this sideshow, she's going after 107 content creators. And out of 107 of them, she nailed one. So far, he will appeal, as far as I know, but she nailed one. And this one, why Andy is so important to this case for her, is because he's the only one that actually is creating this major, major documentary against her, where he not only got a lot of other content creators to speak about her and speak about the case, but he actually also got crew members and executives and Hollywood people on this documentary to speak about their experiences. And this is very, very damaging for Blake Lively. Understandably, she would want to shut him up. Understandably, someone like Andy with his 1 million YouTube subscribers and his, past in the industry, and also this documentary, is going to have a lot more damage to her than Twitter user 723 with 12 followers. She doesn't really give a shit about those people. She was looking to find if they had any smear campaign info. She didn't find anything, by the way. But now she's got this Andy, and she's like, let's go, right? He's the biggest fish, Patricia says. Yes, and the documentary will make Blake and Ryan look terrible. Of course. I don't believe it's going to make them look any worse than they already do, but they're going to do everything that they possibly can do to shut him up and to quiet him down. And it's Joy is saying, who is Andy? When I say Andy, he is the creator. He's the CEO behind Popcorn Planet, which is the YouTube channel that is being subpoenaed by Blake Lively, and I'll get into. So this is the press release that Popcorn Planet just released. It says, in a ruling that has alarmed digital media experts and First Amendment advocates, a federal magistrate judge in the Middle District of Florida has denied journalist protections to Andy Signore, founder of the independent news network Popcorn Planet, solely because his reporting appears on YouTube rather than in traditional corporate media. So let me finish reading it and then I'll go into it. Judge Lindsey Griffin, that's the name of the judge, ruled that Signore, despite hosting a daily investigative news platform with nearly 1 million subscribers, does not qualify as a journalist under Florida's reporter's privilege statute. As a result, he has been ordered to turn over private communications with sources related to the high profile Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni legal case. Communications shared in confidence by whistleblowers fearing retaliation in Hollywood. This ruling is a chilling attack on independent journalism, Signore says. It suggests that unless you work for a newspaper or legacy media corporation, you have no right to protect your sources. That is not only wrong, it endangers every whistleblower, content creator, podcaster, and independent reporter working today. Throughout the case, the magistrate judge accepted sealed claims from Lively's legal team at face value while dismissing Signore's sworn testimony. By doing so, the court effectively created a two-tiered system of press rights, one for corporate media and one for independent journalists who operate on modern platforms such as YouTube, podcasts, or online publications. Legal analysts warn that if allowed to stand, this ruling could erode long-established reporter protections and discourage insiders from coming forward, particularly in industries like entertainment where pressure and retaliation are common. Signore's legal team is preparing to appeal directly to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, bypassing further proceedings in the Middle District of Florida. A petition to the U.S. Supreme Court remains possible depending on the outcome. Independent journalism is not the fringe. It is the future, Signore adds. Millions rely on digital reporters for honest coverage that isn't filtered through studios, publicists, or corporate interests. If the courts erase our protections, powerful people will be able to silence inconvenient reporting with a single subpoena. To support the appeal, Signore has launched a new public campaign to raise a legal war chest for what will be a significant and costly fight to defend the rights of modern journalists. And then he puts his link below, which is givesendgo.com/Blake appeal. So essentially what they're saying is, and the whole order I have, and it's an 18-page order, which is long. So I don't want to spend too much time going through it. I think the best thing to do is just basically kind of give you the skinny on it. It was the motion to quash was denied, essentially just basically by saying that Andy Signore, because he operates on YouTube, which I don't know about you guys, this is where I get my info now. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. When was the last time you guys needed like breaking news and you were like TV on, CNN? When was the last time you did that? I can't think of the last time I ever was like, oh, shoot, there's breaking news. Let me run to the market and get a copy of the LA Times. I can't even imagine. Or even to go to latimes.com because you have to pay for it. I would never. I would go to X. I would go to, and it's dangerous a little bit, the fact that we don't have like news, but even the news, as we know, is filtered through so many voices. I don't trust the New York Times. And a lot of people do this, right? All the Substacks, all the newspapers on, all the news journalists on Substack, all the Aaron Parnases of the world, the Kara Swishers, of course now I can't think of anyone, but like all of the people that deliver the news every day in an independent platform online. There's hundreds from the left to the right. Now it's not news anymore because it's on a computer. It's on your phone. A lot of people watch YouTube on their TVs. What's the difference? This is insane. This is an insane concept. This is someone that doesn't understand the media platform of 2025. So it says it's denied as moot, and basically by saying that, that, um he doesn't qualify under Florida statute, which limits protection to salaried employees or contractors for traditional media outlets, which is newspapers, TV stations. A self operated YouTube channel lacks these formal structures and editorial standards, and it's clearly not a newspaper or a news magazine. I mean, everyone should argue this. Even, honestly, even like, and you know what's so frustrating about this, by the way? Yes, it's so interesting, Micah, is only Lester Holt allowed to be a journalist? Like, no, only Barbara Walters in her grave is only still allowed to be a journalist. Like, Dan Rather. It's so crazy. And so then it says also the waiver of privilege. There's also a few other things here. It says Popcorn Planet delayed providing a privilege log for 3 months until court ordered and submitted a vague conclusory one lacking specifics, um, which constitutes a waiver. An in-camera review revealed irrelevant non-privileged content anyway. Um, they felt that the materials were highly relevant to Lively's claims of a coordinated campaign of retaliation via media manipulation. I'm just reading the notes from the document. Uh, and Lively shows compelling need to have them revealed as they go to the quote heart of the matter in her libel allegations. And let me see. On the underlying allegations, Lively claims the defendants directly engaged with media platforms to overwhelm and confuse the public's understanding of Miss Lively's allegations, to drive negative sentiment against Miss Lively, including seeding content on platforms like Reddit and with small audiences and lax editorial standards. Because Popcorn Planet fails to establish that the privilege applies and fails to demonstrate an undue burden, the amended motion to quash is denied. It's really, really frustrating. Now, there's a few different things that comes out of it, of course, and, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play for you guys, not actually Golden's take on it, because she has a really interesting take on the whole thing. Um, it's very frustrating because I do think that at the end of the day, um, he really should not have to he should not have to get, um, to turn over his stuff. Like, I don't think he should have to. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure her side would believe that that he should have to, but let me find it really fast. Hold on. TikTok, not actually Golden. Is this it? Hold on. Oh, NASCAR. Where does she cover it? Sorry, guys. I can't find it. Hold on. Where is it? Oh, okay, I get it. It's a long video and then they just cut it. Okay. I'm gonna try to find it, but it's gonna take a second. Um, but basically she put out that she believes that, there was definitely a lot of issues with it. There was some stuff in it that he had these conversations with a defendant, like a long text message back and forth with one of the defendants, and I believe she outed that it was Melissa Nathan. Here we go. Now I finally found it. Oh my God, that took forever, and I'm really sorry about that, you guys. Here we go. Share screen. Sorry, that was so annoying.
That Popcorn Planet lost their motion to quash. I read through it. I do have a couple of thoughts. It appears to me that the largest problem they had is where they physically are. Where you physically are sometimes makes a huge difference in terms of the law. I wish people would understand that more. So they are in Florida, which means they're covered by Florida law, but they're also in federal court in the 11th Circuit. The 11th Circuit covers Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. And both Florida law and the 11th Circuit take a very, very narrow position on what you have to be to qualify as a journalist to get journalist privilege. Had they made this same argument in Nevada, they might have won, but they were making it in Florida, and so they lost. I will say the judge took some digs at both Andy and his lawyers here, saying like, because you're looking at what kind of an organization is it? Is a professional reporter, because that's what the law requires in Florida. And so he says, he formed it as a for-profit, and he drops this snarky footnote that's like, you said in a sworn declaration that it's a 501c3, but it's not. And we can see that from the Florida Department of State, where people list the companies. So there's some sloppiness here that I think probably didn't help. I'm sure that's not on Andy. I'm sure that's on the people who wrote the declaration for him. But long story short, under Florida law, you have to be a quote unquote professional journalist. And the judge was like, you're a YouTuber and you talk about current events, but that doesn't make you a journalist under this particular law. And then again, some digs here about Popcorn Planet clues without analysis, right? So he's like, you didn't give me anything I think it's actually a she. She's like, you didn't really give me anything to work with. Now, I don't know that it would have mattered because the law is not great. Also, this didn't help that he did not provide a privilege log until months after the deadline. So he waived a lot of the privilege, right? I don't know if this is his first time dealing with litigation. I don't know. But that didn't help either. And then the privilege log they gave didn't really get up to par. Now, the judge says a lot of the counsel said this and counsel said that. Sometimes judges do that and sometimes they don't. It's a matter of style. Sometimes it's the judge's way of digging at somebody's attorneys. I can't tell here, but it says counsel for Popcorn Planet argued it was nonsense or absurd that he had to log every text message, whatever. When somebody goes in front of a court and says, it's obvious, clearly, that's absurd, that is a tell that it is very much not clear and it is very much not absurd. It's like a joke, right? If you're writing a legal document and it's clearly blah, 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 what you're saying is it is so unclear, right? So I think maybe they pushed it a little bit too hard. Again, I'm not saying anyone committed malpractice. I'm not sure the law it would have mattered, but the judge doesn't seem to be real thrilled with the way that this was argued. And then, of course, this is the thing that everybody's talking about, which totally makes sense. That says, for example, item 4 on the privilege log is a 6-month-long, 89-page text message conversation between Signori and a defendant and the underlying lawsuit. Based on what the order says at the beginning, the only defendants that the order names by name in terms of being involved in the case are Brian Friedman and Melissa Nathan. I think it's with one of them. That's my guess, if I had to guess. But he's like, sorry, but that shit is relevant. She saw this in camera, and she's like, sorry, this shit is relevant. So he's going to have to turn it over. Now, I don't know what that stuff is. I don't know if it's about the documentary. Just talk about the documentary in here. So maybe it's a bunch of hey, can you make this person available? Hey, can you make this person available? We want to interview them. I don't know. But there is a 6-month-long, 89-page text message conversation between the Popcorn Planet guy and some defendant on this case who I think is either Friedman or Nathan, and they're going to have to turn it over. Now, the judge does say, By the way, some of this stuff has already shown up in other productions. So I think there might be some crossover with some of the things, I'm guessing Nathan, that somebody else has turned over. So it's not all going to be new necessarily, for whatever that's worth. But he has to do it, and he has to do it pretty fast. So that is unquestionably a win for Lively. I think that it's important that people understand that these issues of who is a journalist and who is not, for purposes of the the First Amendment, are very much unsettled in a lot of places. Perez Hilton was able to do this and get it quashed in Nevada, in large part because Nevada has much, much more broad laws about who constitutes a journalist, because that is what they have decided to do in the state of Nevada in their legislature. So we want to protect journalists. It's in part a business move to say, if you want to come here and start a website and do all kinds of crazy shit on it, we got you covered, right? That might be part of the reason why Perez Hilton moved there. But Florida doesn't have that. And so that kind of put
That's bummer.
Popcorn Planet in this space of like, you have to deal with the law that you've got in the place that you're in. And that law turned out to be very good for him. So I don't know. I haven't looked to see if he's talked about it on his page. I'm sure he will. But it looks like he's going to have to turn that stuff over. And we are all going to get to see who he's been talking to for 6 months.
It's a bummer. It's a bummer for him. And it's a bummer for the case. I mean, what do you guys think?